Well, we're changing perspective now to another side of the NGO bill. And joining us right now is Honorable Pt.1, who is the chairman, the NGO Regulation Bill Committee. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you very much.
Well, you were on this program some time ago when the first controversy, when the Bill Festival hit the airwaves and the first controversy landed. Would you say that now you have a clearer understanding of the objections that CSOs have against the NGO regulation bill?
I've always clearly understood what the objections were about. Yeah, but at some point, I was uncomfortable with the amount of misinformation, and ignorance, in some quarters. I was worried about that, but I clearly understand, the position of CSOs on the matter.
I mean, yesterday at the House of Representatives, at the hearing that happened, we heard one of the members saying that members of civil society were too aggressive in terms of how they came across with their objections against the bill. But then, the NGOs believe that this is a threat to what it is that they've always done, and people will argue that if they had to fight for what it was that they did, what they believed in, people would just be just about as aggressive.
Well, I think the point he tried to make is that there's a better way to put your argument rather than, shouting about it. You can articulate your points and convey them in a more matured way.
Shouting?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that he was against whatever comments that is coming from anybody, but the mode of presentation.
Were you at the hearing yesterday?
Sure, I chaired the hearing.
You heard the complaints of members of the NGO. I mean, we had quite a bit of their articulation yesterday, and a lot of them seemed to be very tempered in terms of how they presented their points.
That is the approach they choose to adopt. But the issues were succinctly presented, by a lot of, participants. And we quite appreciate their perspectives and their inputs, and all of that will be considered in the final analysis. I made the point the first time that I was here that there was no point misinforming Nigerians about the NGO bill. There was no point fighting when it was not time to fight. That the right place to present issues and defend whatever they think they need to defend is a public hearing, which happened yesterday, and they did it quite well.
Honourable Member, let's get into the meat of the bill as it's currently being proposed, because one of the biggest points of controversy right now is Clause 29, Paragraph 6, which dictates that NGOs would essentially have to transfer their assets to the federal government to keep, in quote, in trust for the people. Now, while it says that, it does not give any indication as to which government agency they'll hand over their assets to, nor does it say what will happen to the assets when the projects are completed. And there's a concern on the part of NGOs that if it passes as it is right now, that it could be used as a kind of a bargaining chip, if you will, to silence or stifle the positions of some of these non-governmental organizations asking for greater transparency. What are your thoughts about that?
Sincerely speaking, we had a very robust debate yesterday. The turnout was quite unprecedented. The people came on time. They were there from the beginning to the end of the exercise because it was a very interactive one. The atmosphere was quite conducive and friendly. Now, they actually spoke about a number of clauses, not just the asset disposal one. They spoke about a number of clauses. They spoke about the 2-yearly renewal of license, for instance. They spoke about the burden, financial burden of registration, on CSOs, particularly community-based organizations, the small ones. They equally complained about the multiplicity of, regulatory, agencies. You know, all of these are some of the issues that they raised. And it was quite nice that they had the opportunity to talk about all of this. The asset disposal thing is a thing of concern to virtually everybody that I have spoken to among the CSOs and NGO operators, including the international, players. Yeah, the question there is, if you have to, if the people have to submit the equipment at the end of projects, they actually said it should be submitted to the commission. That's the proposal. What does the commission do with it? Mm-hmm. Do they have the rights of ownership? Mm-hmm. You know, it didn't state clearly where it should go to and how it should be handled. That is a concern among CSOs and NGOs. And I think that even the legislators, were equally concerned about that.